All right, we are now joined by Beth Mowins, a Syracuse alum and a NFL broadcaster with Ben Spector. I'm Jack Gordon. Beth, it's been a very interesting NFL season that you've gotten to cover, and it's culminated into two teams matching up in the Sin City. A Super Bowl in Las Vegas is kind of blowing people's minds so far. What are your thoughts on it?
Oh, I think it's spectacular. It's been great to, see up close, having worked with the Raiders for years before moving on to other assignments, being able to cover some of their games, with CBS and certainly with the work that I do with ESPN. It's fabulous to see the growth of the Raiders in town and just sports in general in Las Vegas. It's such a destination, and it's got everything that people want. They want to go watch the game, but they also want to have a lot of fun while they're doing it. Maybe get in some warm weather, hopefully at some point. So it's great to see, and I'm glad for the Raiders and glad for Allegiant Stadium to be able to
It,
do this.
it's funny because it's a little cold here. So anytime we tell
Yeah.
people that we're from Syracuse, they say you brought the cold weather with you, and it's a little.
Oh no,
I'm
they
curious.
don't know what cold weather is, Ben.
The
I'm sure
desert
you guys still have
time.
your flip flops and shorts on out there.
Yeah, pretty much, pretty much.
I'm curious about your thoughts on Allegiant Stadium. Jack and I spent a lot of time there a few days ago, and we were pretty amazed by what it has to offer. The clear roof, the torch, and obviously you worked with the Raiders, and I'm curious to just hear your experiences at Allegiant Stadium.
It's been fabulous. I think it's great for the organization. They did a top notch job in just everything about it, even walking the concourses, or if you get a chance to go into like the suite area or the press box area, they did a good job of subtly Vegasing it up, if you will, with just great artwork, great visuals. And then once you finally do get to your seat, every seat's a good one. And there's so much history around the organization. It's really cool. I'm hoping at some point they'll be able to open up the lanai doors, even if just for a little bit, with the torch up there, Al Davis's torch, and then the backdrop of the Las Vegas skyline. It's second to none.
So, what was your experience like with the Raiders?
It was fabulous, and it's a tough game, I think, for Raider Nation to watch this weekend. It's your old Bay Area rival. It's your nemesis inside the division. And you really wish that you would have been the team playing in that game. But I think there's a lot of excitement around the team right now with Antonio Pierce. I think there's a lot of anticipation around the organization right now. You still need to solidify the quarterback position. You still need to, get some playmakers or develop some playmakers on the defensive side to help out, Max Crosby, they've done a great job developing him into a perennial Pro Bowler. So I think there's some good and bad. And I think though that with the support in Las Vegas and with all that they have now inside the organization, that they're ready to explode.
Beth, you talked a little bit about the matchup, Chiefs 49ers. What stands out to you about this upcoming Super Bowl matchup?
Wow, how about the tight end love, huh? We start out right there with with Kelsey and Kittle, and it's really cool to see how those two guys have developed themselves and how they have just been perfect fits for both of those organizations and both of those offenses. So, I think it's going to start with those two guys and the ability of both Mahomes and Purdy to get the ball to their playmakers on the outside, to get the ball downfield. Obviously, San Francisco, with Ayuk and Debo has a ton of weapons that they can go to. Got to try and make it easy on the young quarterback Purdy initially. Got to keep the pass rush away. Got to allow Pacheco some lanes to run in. So for on the Kansas City side, so I think those things are going to be critical. Obviously, for Purdy, it would be McCaffrey on that side of the ball, and then Mahomes is an X factor guy that can win you Super Bowls, and make plays that nobody else seems to be able to make.
When you look at Brock Purdy's season so far with San Francisco, it's pretty fascinating that he's kind of come all this way. What's your take on, Mr. Irrelevant now playing in the Super Bowl?
I think the first thing that jumps to mind is it's a guy that believes in himself, a guy with a ton of experience as a starter, um, can step into a situation where people have doubted him and just do his thing and play the way that he likes to play. And they've obviously set up the offense around him so that he can hit close to 70% of his passes on the season. I think, as a low draft pick, you're going into a situation where you're probably going to have a lot of good skill guys around you. And that is the case that he has, walked into. The situation has been perfect for him. But I think just his self-confidence, his self-awareness of what he's really good at and playing to those strengths gives hope to a lot of people that may not be, 6'4" and 240 trying to play that position with a cannon for an arm, but he's got enough of the skills necessary to complement, what's in his head and what's in his heart.
Beth, you talked about the tight end battle, Kittle versus Kelsey. Seems like this tight end battle has a little bit of a wrench thrown in it because a lot more people are invested in Travis Kelsey's life with Taylor Swift, and that seems to be an ongoing story across the NFL and across the country with this Super Bowl. So what are your thoughts on, I guess, how it's covered to an extent and how it's perceived as well?
Yeah, I think anything or anybody that can bring more people to the sport, I think is fabulous. And obviously, the Swifties have really been captivated by all of this, and what were already good ratings for the NFL are even higher now, and I'll give her some credit for that. Uh, I saw her in concert this summer. She was unbelievable. 3 hours straight, nonstop. And to be able to write her own stuff and play her own instruments, I think is fabulous for any youngster, male or female, out there that wants to get into that profession, to be able to do what she's been able to do. She's strong, intelligent, independent, and she's choosing to share her life with this guy who seems pretty cool in his own right and is a superstar in his own sphere. So I don't really see any negatives to that situation, and I look forward to seeing her for what is it on average, 25 seconds during a game?
Mike Tirico told us 35 seconds the other day.
35 seconds.
We're outraged by it.
You know what? If that's enough to get the Chads, Dads, and Brads all fired up to use her quote, then I'm happy about that too.
I'll enjoy the 35 seconds.
Yeah, I know. I always find it entertaining. Well, sticking with the Chiefs, we had a discussion on our show yesterday about, we were talking dynasty, we were talking GOAT conversation with Mahomes, and people like to go down both of those alleys. How would you kind of summarize this run for the Chiefs so far in terms of, these last 5 years with a potential to win a third Super Bowl?
Mm-hmm. They're getting into that territory. Obviously, if they can go back to back, that hasn't happened in about 20 years. If they get a fourth win, that puts them into, some more rarefied air, and to be able to do it with a lot of the same guys, in particular Mahomes leading the way and Andy Reid at the helm. I think they're moving into a space now where you start being able to compare them to some of the all-time great teams and great dynasties. I think that, and I understand it's not one guy that is responsible for wins, but, if Mahomes can get a third Super Bowl, winning to me is the most important stat. So you still have to have the Bradys and the Montanas of the world in a little higher space. I think San Francisco as a team, actually, with a win, joins New England and Pittsburgh with 6 Super Bowls. So to be able to do it against that franchise and twice, right? Because they beat them a few years ago. I think that is pretty special, and that Kansas City definitely does move into a different sort of sphere when you're talking about, a third for this guy and a third for this coach, and be able to do it in this modern era is pretty special.
Beth, I want to transition into your broadcasting career in terms of this season and your time at CBS. Is there a game or a moment that kind of stands out, or a story where it's pretty memorable in terms of your experiences calling games?
The Monday Night Football, I think, was pretty special with ESPN, and it kind of, set a standard. You hope that you can be at your best in the biggest situations. In a lot of ways, we're just like, the athletes and the coaches and our game prep and our scouting reports and our execution once that, camera's on. So that was pretty special to be able to do that. And, what I think to be able to do it well kind of has probably opened doors for a lot of other people that have now moved into the NFL space. We see more and more women doing that. So that's kind of cool. I was just a kid with a dream. So really any youngster out there that, has a goal and a dream they want to pursue that, you haven't seen anybody that looks like you do it before, or, it's going to be a rough road, that your stick-to-itiveness, your availability is your best ability, as we like to say in the ball games. So that one was pretty cool. The first CBS game that I did in Indianapolis was pretty cool. During a commercial break, you have a chance to look out into the crowd a little bit, and there were a couple of times during that game where there was a mom and dad and a little girl in the seats, and they were turned around pointing up at the press box. Or you get if you're in the expensive suites, and there's somebody right next door, you get a looky-loo sometimes from a little girl next door, and it's kind of cool. So those games were pretty big. Probably one of the most memorable experiences was my when I was calling games with the Raiders in the preseason, and Jim Nantz and Tony Romo were doing a practice game before they started out their first regular season together. And Jim couldn't have been more gracious. We were at the old Oakland Coliseum, and he came down from his booth and sat with me and our crew and my stat guy and my spotter, and just talked for 45 minutes to an hour with us, hanging out pregame. He gave me one of his game boards. As you guys know, in our business, game boards are, gold. How do you do yours? Well, this is what mine looks like. This is how I do it. And everyone's is unique. So I still have that. That's one of my prized possessions. But a guy like that, to be able to share a few moments with him was really cool. And that's kind of what I've tried to take forward with me too, is to make sure you sort of pass it along and try and help out as many people as you can. And he kind of set the standard there and still does today. And now it's really cool to watch he and Tony calling the Super Bowl together in Vegas.
Beth, today is National Girls and Women in Sports Day. So for you, what does it mean to you to be one of the leading female voices in all of sports?
It's really cool. We called the first all women's crew for an NBA game a couple of years ago, me and Doris Burke and Lisa Salters. And they were kind of asking me, they've had obviously their own trailblazing experiences, and we were having a conversation about, what that feels like and what it means. And, when you're in the moment, you're just kind of doing it. It's your day to day. It's all you know. You don't really think about it. And then you have a moment where you may pause and look around, or afterwards, somebody might come up to you and say something nice about the experience. And so we were out on the floor pregame, and it was amazing how many young girls with their parents or whoever were coming down just to wave, or they had signs, or they wanted to take a picture. And all three of us were kind of taken aback at, just how significant it is to, see somebody that looks like you or sounds like you doing something like that. So there's a responsibility with it that is, we take very seriously, all the while trying to maintain the fact that this is fun, and we never work a day in our lives if you're doing the job right. And then as a player, that's where it all started really is, I think back of my days growing up and the success that Felicia Leggett right now is having with the women's team at Syracuse. And that was somebody I used to play pickup games with, when I was growing up. That's where you develop the self-confidence. That's where you fall flat on your face and you pick yourself up and do it again. And the next time you don't fall so hard. And the next time after that, well, maybe somebody else has fallen instead. So that sort of confidence and that growth is so critical in what really propelled me in my broadcasting career as well.
Beth, we're at Syracuse. You spent some time at Syracuse as well. How has Syracuse helped you in your broadcasting career?
Well, I'm a little special in that I actually grew up there and spent a lot of my childhood, when tickets for a basketball game in the Carrier Dome were hard to come by, and there were 33,000 in there. It seemed like every night for the old Georgetown and St. John's and Boston College games, and so I've had a lot of Orange blood in me right from the get-go. So it's been really cool to watch sort of the growth of what was a sort of Big East, Northeast brand into what became a national power for years on the basketball court and on the football field. So that's really cool. And I always think back, my dad, when he was growing up, he was watching Jim Brown play both football and lacrosse, still probably the greatest lacrosse player of all time. So there's a lot of memories there. And, I remember when Pearl Washington first arrived at Syracuse and literally transformed the way that not only the university looked at itself, but how the whole community suddenly had, our chests were pumped out, or we're pumped up a little bit, and we're flexing a little bit because, hey, this guy chose to be one of us. And I think that to me was a seminal moment moving forward, not only for the university, but for the entire community, to feel a lot better about ourselves and about how sports makes us feel that collective community vibe, and about how Newhouse really makes us feel proud because it is the best in the world at what we do. And, I have an interview later today with a Missouri grad, and of course they're number 2 at best, maybe Northwest, I'll give Northwestern a nod. So, but it's a great sense of pride. And I love talking smack with other broadcasters whenever I can, because there's always another 3 or 4 Syracuse people working with me. They got my back.
Oh, we've definitely felt that this week. I mean, just walking around the amount of, we're always wearing orange or some kind of Syracuse logo. So we're getting a lot of, go orange, or, oh, I graduated there. And it's just really nice to see. And one of the other themes we've had this week in interviewing people is one of the longest standing traditions at Syracuse University is a pub, Fagans, that is still around. I'm wondering.
Flip night.
Okay,
Yep,
there you go. You already know where I'm going with this. We got to hear if you have a flip night strategy.
I believe, if memory serves me correct, I would always try and call tails to lead off.
There you go. Lead off.
That's you and Victor Rico both.
Yep. I will, and I don't recall if there was any sort of weaving through like 2 tails, 1 heads, 2 tails type of situation. I think it was more of a feel, and
yep.
and more of how the previous flip had affected my ability to think properly. So. Yeah, tails first, though, I think is where it all starts.
Okay. Interesting.
I'm a tails guy. I always pick tails. That's my strategy.
I'm every other. Got to play the math, right?
Oh.
All right, Beth. Well, we thank you so much for your time. Leading into Sunday, we've gotten to chat with a lot of different, Syracuse broadcasters and some former athletes, things like that. But it's really special to talk with someone like yourself on a day like today, and where we celebrate female broadcasters. So, and every female in sports. So thank you so much.
Awesome. Thanks, Jack. Thanks, Ben. Appreciate it.